Hello guys, happy belated new year. Thank you so much for returning to the channel. I want to say thank you to all of those who have subscribed. I've seen immense support, those who've liked my videos, those who've shared my videos. I want to say thank you to all of you. I've gained 300 subscribers, and that's quite a lot, and that means a lot to me. And I hope that you know that your support, your value, you watching or taking your time out of your day to watch my videos means a lot to me, and I want to say thank you so much. For those who are returning or return every other time I post, I want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate all you've done and all you're doing for this channel. Thank you so much. With that said, belated new year, I know, but I'm back. I'm hoping we can see where this goes. Okay, so yeah, today I want to discuss another case, the Warunge family massacre that happened back in 2021. And I just want to give, and I just want to share with you what really or how it all unfolded that day and reasons for it. Why it all happened. So it's going to be quite a long video, so buckle in. But thank you so much for watching this video as well. I appreciate you. Now let's get into the video. Stephen J, who after finishing his day's work went to Karura shopping center to unwind a little. He stayed there until 9 p.m. then made his way home. At that time he was staying with his friend James Kinyanjui, and that's where he was heading to. When he got there, or rather when he was approaching the home, he saw that the lights were still on, and that was about 9 to 10 p.m. and that stood out to him that the lights were still on at that time. And when he was standing outside, outside the window, he saw that there was a bit of a stain on the curtains, and he was wondering what was that. It was only when he got in the house, that he saw what was on the curtains. Blood. Blood was on the curtains. When he saw this, he freaked out. Immediately started looking for James. He knew something really bad had happened, so he quickly went through all the rooms looking for James. And it is in one of the rooms that he would find James lying on a blood-soaked mattress. As soon as he saw the state James was in, he called in the police. The police rushed there and they checked on James, and it was obvious to them that James was beyond help. He was beyond help. He had lost his life that night. So since definitely the scene, looking at everything the state James was in, to the police it was clearly a homicide. So the police began their investigation right away. They processed the scene, collected evidence, and took James's body for an autopsy. And after, they did everything at James's house, after wrapping up at James's house, before leaving, they knocked on the neighbor's, house. That is just the house adjacent to that of James. So they wanted to speak to the neighbors. I asked them whether they saw or heard anything. They knocked on the gate but got no response, and they were there for quite a while. Because they got no response, they assumed that the family had gone to bed and they left. So they left, planning to come back the next day to continue their investigation. Morning came and the police were at the neighbor's gate, knocking, asking to be let in. They were there for a while and no response. Nobody was coming to open the gate for them. And, because you see, they were at the gate for a while, they didn't have anyone coming. They peeked through the gate just to find out, are they coming? Is there anybody in there? So when they peeked through the gate, that's when they saw someone laid near the gate, not moving. They became alarmed. They decided to force their way in to see if the man needed help. Was he okay? Why was he lying on the floor not responding to them? So they forced their way in. They scaled the fence and they got in. And immediately it became apparent that the man laid on the floor near the gate was deceased. And clearly definitely murdered, or someone definitely took his life. They definitely knew something was horrible in this situation. Previous day they had collected James's body. Now they're finding that the neighbors, in the neighbor's compound, someone is laid there, murdered. So definitely something is wrong. So they rushed into the home to check on the rest of the family, whether they were okay. And in the home, they would find a horrific scene. All of the family members were in different rooms, and all of them had passed away. And with that, the police began their investigation. This was clearly a homicide. Someone had come into their home and attacked this family, murdered them. And remember, the night before, James was murdered. So there was a high possibility that the two murders or the two homicides could be related. So definitely the police stepped right into, operation. They wanted to find out who murdered this family, who murdered James, were they related. So they began quickly their investigation, and for the police it was a race to hunt the killers down, or the killer, or the person who did this to the family. So they began their investigation by accounting for the family members, like how many members belonged to this family, were there any that were missing at that time. So they discovered that 3 family members were missing. 2 sisters and 1 brother were not there, after accounting for the 5 that were at the home. The 4 that were at home, 3 were missing, 2 sisters and a brother that belonged to the same family. So they quickly tracked down the 2 sisters, and they were in high school, so they were found to be in schools, a boarding school. So they were in school at the time of the murders, which they rules them out as the perpetrators, which only left 1 member unaccounted for, and that was Lawrence Warunge. He was a college student, and while they looked for him, they thought he could have been at the college at the time, or maybe a possibility whoever did this had taken Lawrence with them, like he was more of a victim at this time. They were looking at him at this time as a victim and not a suspect. So they wanted to just account for his whereabouts. Where was he? Was he at college? But they would discover that they definitely were wrong. He was not, at the college. He was not there. So they did their best to try and locate him, but every time they came up empty, and the search continued. Please do note that the police at this time were looking for Lawrence to know where he is and question him. Simply put, they considered him more of a victim than a suspect. So they wanted to find him to see whether he was safe, what he could tell them about the murders, but you see that perspective, that the lens they were using on him as a victim would change over time. But at this time, he was being looked at as a victim. So before we go on with the timeline, let's look at Lawrence Warunge. So who is he as a person? Lawrence Warunge, 22 years old, firstborn son to Nicholas Warunge and Anne Wanjiku. Nicholas Warunge, now based in the US, who would occasionally be home or come home. Anne Wanjiku, nurse also, but worked at Kiambu County government. 3 siblings. Lawrence had or has 3 siblings. 2 sisters, that is Joyce Njeri and Grace Karagi, and a younger brother known as Christian Njenga. And at the time of all of this happening, there was a cousin staying with the family, Maxwell Njenga. So Lawrence, at that time, or at the time all of this unfolded, was a college student at Mount Kenya University, was studying business IT. And also at that time, he wasn't staying with the family, he wasn't living with the family. And I assume due to schooling, but cannot be sure, because I've seen on some reports which say that he wasn't staying with the family because they were on bad terms, they weren't getting along, so he decided to leave the family or got kicked out. So I can't be sure why he wasn't staying with the family, but what they agree on is that he wasn't living with them, with the family at that time. And so we go back to the timeline, and this is how it all unfolded. Police continued looking for Lawrence. They were tracking his phone with no luck because the phone was switched off. But they kept at it. Soon they would get a break in the case. Lawrence Warunge switched his phone on the third day mark. Now that was on the third day he switched his phone on, and they were able to track him. They got a hit. They tracked him down where he was staying at, and I've also seen in other reports that his uncle had called in and ratted him out. So the police knew where he was. And as soon as they got that, they rushed to arrest Lawrence. And got to where he was, they arrested him without incident. They also arrested his girlfriend, Sarah Muthoni, who was with him. Mind you, I'm saying arrested here because the opinion of the police about Lawrence Warunge had changed. At that time it had changed. He was no longer a victim, but they were looking at him as a suspect, and made even more suspicious as to why he went off the grid. He wasn't using his phone. He wasn't even coming forward, even after the media appealed, for him to come forward or to any information from anyone. He wasn't coming out, and that definitely seemed suspicious to the police. So they arrested him as a person of interest into the case. Brought him into the station, and the interrogation began. It didn't take much prodding or much in questioning. He sang like a bird in there. He immediately confessed to the crime and told them what happened. It was quite shocking to the police. They thought this murder, or this, the two homicides at two different houses, that had been done by 5 people. And that time, it was also in the media that the police suspected it was a gang of 5 people that did this to the family. Why? That was quite a shock when Lawrence actually said it was one person who did it, and the person who did it was himself. He was the one who carried out the murders. So quite shocking to the police. And here I'd like to mention that as when he was arrested, it's reported, seen it in a report, that when he was arrested, he this is what he did. It's so bizarre. I think he stated this. He said that when he saw the rest of the family, he wanted to buy pepper spray or pepper to chew or spray himself with, so that when he got arrested, he would cry, or definitely cry, so that it seemed that the murders affected him as well, in the same way that the extended family felt. So he wanted to seem remorseful, though he wasn't really. So that was a weird part that I read, that he wanted to actually either chew the pepper or spray himself with the pepper so that he cried in the investigation or in the media, so that it seemed that the murders had affected him. Bizarre, isn't it? Very bizarre. And this is what he told the police in the confession. January 5th, 2021. Lawrence Warunge left his home armed with a knife which is said that Sarah had bought for him. He left the home and headed to Thika. When he got there, he bought a few things. He bought a pair of trousers, a jacket, some ladies' shoes, otherwise known as doll shoes, some wigs, and a doll, a female doll, if you will. Yes, you heard that right, a doll. Why a doll? Nobody knows. And the doll would later be found without its head. Later thought that Lawrence removed the head of the doll. Unclear why he did that. Also why he bought the shoes and the wigs. No one seems to know. But those were the things he bought when he went to Thika. Now from Thika, he made his way to Uhuru Park. What he did there is unknown. Then he went to Holy Family Basilica, the church. Now, because he knew he would be searched at the church, he went to a local convenience store, left his belongings at the luggage area, to come back for them later, but he left them there and then went to the church. Why he went to the church on this specific day is unknown, but he spent time there, and at 4 p.m. he left, went and collected his bag, then he boarded a matatu to head home. He would get home at around 6 p.m. When he got there, he didn't go to his house. He didn't go to, his family's house. He went to hang out with James Kinyanjui at his home. And while there, it's reported he had asked James for a metal rod or a metal bar, and James gave it to him. Unclear whether James had asked him about that, why he wanted the metal rod. Nevertheless, James gave it to him. Now, while they were still hanging out, James noticed that Lawrence seemed nervous. He was quite tense, and he had asked him about it, why he looked so nervous. And Lawrence just, shrugged it off, saying that he was just stressed, and, he was just stressed about something. About what? It's unknown, but that's the reason he said that he was nervous, because he was just a bit stressed. And they left it at that. So they continued hanging out with James. Now, James was oblivious of everything or anything sinister. He didn't think anything sinister would happen. So he was just quite there enjoying time, spending time with Lawrence. Lawrence, the ever devious, he was listening, he was watching, he was waiting for the right time to make his move. Lawrence waited until the opportune time presented itself. He waited for James to become distracted, and that's when he pounced, unleashing a savage attack on this man. He swung the metal rod, hitting James several times till he collapsed. He continued with his attack, his aim being to finish off this man. When he saw what he had, done, and that much, and, that was a lot, and still James wasn't, dead as he wanted, he took out his knife and, the knife that he had brought with him, and slit his throat, ending James's life. Later, he would be recorded saying, chillingly, that he had to use his knife on James because James refused to die. Now, after the attack, he stayed at the house, with the body of James right there. He stayed there, just, biding his time for his next plan. He stayed there until 8 p.m. when he noticed his father being dropped off at the home, and that was his cue. He left James's house and made his way, now to the home where he lived. Scaled the electric fence, and mind you, it was on, but that didn't deter him. He was on a mission and he was going to do it no matter what. So whether he got electrocuted, we don't know, but that didn't seem to deter him in any way. So he scaled the fence and got into the home, got into the compound. He went to the electric box and turned off the lights, so everything was pitch black in there. He then made his way to the back door. Here, the conflicting reports. So one report says that he entered the home by, he had a set of keys, so he used his spare keys to enter the home into the kitchen. But some say that he set alight his carrier bag right at the window, or where his mother could actually see at the window, so that it would, lure his mother out, and then the attack would begin. So we don't know how he actually entered the home, but he did manage to get in. As soon as he was in there, he came face to face with his mother, who was in the kitchen area preparing dinner. And then and there, he began his attack on her. He hit her on the head, and his mother collapsed from that blow. And here, while he was still attacking his mother, his cousin had the scuffle, and he rushed in to help the mother to see what was going on. And as soon as Lawrence actually saw him, he whipped himself around and started attacking the cousin. But the cousin, even with a few injuries, he managed to run away and hide from Lawrence. Lawrence then went on with the attack on his mother. He whipped out his knife again and slit his mother's throat and left her to die, bleeding on that floor in the darkness. He had just taken his mother's life, but he still carried on with the attack. He would then make his way further into the home. At this time, his dad, Nicholas Warunge, was upstairs drinking as he was waiting for dinner. He heard the commotion downstairs and made his way there, to see what was going on. He got to the bottom of the steps, and there, in the dark, he would see his son standing with a knife in his hand, waiting for him to get a bit closer. And as soon as the dad, Nicholas, saw him, he started running back upstairs, with Lawrence right behind him. He wasn't going to let him go. He chased after him. Nicholas ran upstairs to his room, seeing no escape ahead. He leapt from his balcony into the compound. He wanted to run and get to the gate to escape, but he wasn't able to, because as soon as he hit the ground, he broke his leg, so that kind of immobilized him. He couldn't run, and still determined, he began crawling, trying to still get to the gate. Lawrence was not done. He came downstairs into the compound, went to where his father was, and stabbed him 34 times, ending his life then and there. And after that, he went back into the home, searched for his cousin and brother. He would find his cousin and he would stab him to death. He would then go for his brother. He would find him hiding under the bed. He would drag him out. His brother would go on to kneel and plead and beg for his life. But despite that, Lawrence wouldn't show mercy. He would go on to end his brother's life. Now, after the massacre, Lawrence would shower, have dinner, same dinner that his mother was preparing. He would eat the same dinner his mother was preparing, and he would watch TV. Isn't that so scary? It's so eerie that he's eating the dinner like nothing happened and watching TV like it's just a normal day in the house or normal day at his parents' house. Wow. So that was what he did. That was what he did after the massacre. So everything's well. To him, everything is okay. Now, to merge it all here, the police would come knocking at around 10 p.m. at the gate. Remember, they were knocking at the gate the night before? The same night they were knocking at the gate, Lawrence was in the home. So he had the gate, he had the knocks, but he ignored them. And then he would go on to stand silently in the dark at the window, just looking at the police as they knocked until they left that night. He would then go on to sleep in his father's bedroom. Why his father's bedroom and not his room? I don't know. but he would go and sleep in his father's bedroom. The morning around 4 a.m. he would get up, pack his bags, wear the doll shoes that he had bought with him. He grabbed phones of the family members. I don't know what he wanted to do with them, but he grabbed their phones, his blooded clothes, packed everything up, and he would leave the house. He would ask for a ride from a delivery van, and that's how he left. He left the home planning to get away with the murders, or so he thought. He would head to Mahi Mahiu, where he would dispose some items there, the knife and other items, and then he would switch his phone off and go into hiding. After 3 days, he would put his phone on, and that's when the police would track him down and basically sold himself out. And that's when they would find him and arrest him. That's what he told the police in the interrogation room.
A son to a couple who were killed in cold blood in Karura area, Kiambu County, was on Friday arrested as a suspect. Police said they arrested the son, identified as Lawrence Warunge, after he went missing since Tuesday when his parents, 2 brothers, and a worker were brutally murdered at their home. Now, Lawrence, a university student in the city, was initially thought to have gone to school, but it was established he had gone into hiding. He later led the detectives into recovery of weapons used in the murder. This story was produced by Gatete Njoroge.
Immediately after the gruesome murders were committed, Lawrence is said to have fled to Naivasha. His mobile phone signal was last traced to Naivasha, but switched off for 2 days until yesterday, when he switched on the phone again in Thika, and later the signal traced to Kabete area. According to police, the suspect went to a relative's home in Gongoro area to seek refuge. It is the relative, an uncle to Lawrence, who blew his cover. Once he was arrested, he told the police that his parents were satanic and cruel to him. Since yesterday, police have been grilling him about the murder details, and today, after a long interrogation, Warunge is said to have made a confession. Investigators say while being interrogated, Lawrence confessed to killing the construction worker first by hacking him to death. He later accessed his parents' house through the rear door, using a bunch of keys, and killed his mother. He later killed his cousin Maxwell, who was rushing to rescue his aunt. Lawrence says he later went to his brother's room, where he also killed him. Finally, he attacked his father, whom he killed after he fell from a balcony and became incapacitated. It is believed that dispute over property was the motive of the murder. According to the investigators, the absence of any form of forced entry or exit in the razor wire that surrounds the compound shows the killer or killers were well known to the family. It is believed that they made their way into the house through the rear door, where they found Annie, the wife of slain businessman and US-based nurse Warunge, and hacked her to death by slitting her throat. The commotion in the kitchen drew the attention of the second victim, Maxwell Njenga, Warunge's 13-year-old nephew, who was confronted along the corridor and cut in the head and throat. Christian Njenga, who detectives say was killed and his throat slit on his bed, had just turned 13 on December 26, 2020. Police believe Warunge, the father, was in the master bedroom upstairs at the time of the attack. He rushed to the balcony on sensing danger and jumped down, where the killers caught up with him and stabbed him 34 times. And after being pressured further, the suspect agreed to lead the investigators to where he had tried to hide the evidence. He led the detectives to Niskize in Mai Mahiu, and here the suspect, dressed in white protective gear, led detectives to where he hid the murder weapons. At this vast piece of land, Lawrence showed the officers a spot where he burnt some items in a bid to conceal the evidence. A knife, which had blood stains and which was covered in a piece of cloth, was recovered. Security officers kept vigil as detectives ransacked the area for clues. Lawrence is said to have come to this location at around 11 p.m. on Tuesday night after allegedly orchestrating the murders of his parents, a brother, a nephew, and a mason. The murders are said to have taken place at 8:30 p.m. The detectives spent several hours at this location before being led to this spot, where there is a pit latrine. Lawrence disclosed that he threw some of the murder weapons inside the latrine. Detectives also picked a few items after demolishing the latrine. Sources close to those leading the probe say that Lawrence is being treated as the only suspect in the crime. Police have since established that Lawrence had a girlfriend who used to live here and moved out yesterday. The caretaker says he used to see the two lovebirds together. Detectives are now looking for the girlfriend. Items recovered from the scenes visited include a knife, a pair of shoes, a pair of trousers, a jacket, a piece of paper, among others. It has emerged that Lawrence was not in good terms with his parents. At the end of last year, Lawrence went to a chief's office near their home and claimed that his parents wanted to bewitch him. According to police, his mother came and picked him saying he had mental issues. The matter was never recorded according to an officer aware of the probe. Tuesday's incident was the fifth in the family according to police.
Now, during his interrogation, he would use very degrading terms to describe his family members. Like, for example, he would say that he went and stabbed his father, after the father fell into the compound. He stabbed him like a snake that he was. He had and would describe his family as, his parents as Satanists, devils, they were evil, and he would basically say they deserved to die. Clearly had a bit of a grudge or something against his parents, I don't know what, but he was quite bitter with them that he was calling them Satanists and devils, calling his father a snake. There was definitely something there. When he was asked why he murdered his family, he gave a bunch of reasons. Now, one being that his parents had been neglecting him ever since he was a young, child. He was forced to stay with the house helps because his parents were out always working, so they weren't there to look after him, and he was forced to stay with the house helps who allegedly abused him when his parents were not around. Also tied into that is that he was kind of kicked out of the house and forced to work for his uncle. His uncle owned a construction business and he was forced to work there, and he had to stay with the house helps where they were staying because he was kind of banned not to come to the house. So he was staying with house helps or servants of the home. That's where he was sleeping. And for him, he felt neglected, he felt alone, like they were kind of basically cutting him off from the family. So that's one of the reasons that he gave. Another report says that his parents, why he did this to his parents or his family is because the parents were talking about him behind his back, and other family members also joined in on the same, so they were kind of backstabbing him. He felt betrayed because they were talking about him, and that's why essentially he felt like he was isolated or being isolated by the rest of the family members. Another reason was that he had, he owed some money at a food shack. He had expected, he had gone there, eaten, so he had expected his mother to settle the bill, but she didn't. And she was quite actually furious when she found out that his son had eaten there, not paid up. So she didn't actually settle that, and she wanted him to settle the bill. She didn't want to settle the bill for him, so she was quite upset about that, and that made Lawrence quite angry about it because he felt that he was entitled to it. His parents should take care of him because now he's a student, doesn't have money, so he felt quite annoyed that his mother wouldn't pay the bill up like she was supposed to. Another reason that was, I've seen in other reports, another reason was that he felt inspired after watching Killing Eve, which is a drama, I believe, a serial drama or a series. What is it? Something. It's a movie or a series. I don't know, I've not watched it, but he said that he was inspired, he felt inspired after watching Killing Eve and wanted to recreate what he saw in the movie. The main character goes on, the assassin goes on to kill her mother and then flees the home to not get caught, and she doesn't actually get caught in that movie. So he felt inspired and thought he would commit a crime, and he would commit a crime and he would get away with it, like, the woman in the film. And here he would say that he got inspiration from this movie, and he even practiced camouflaging so as to not get spotted when he would eventually go on to commit the murders. So he practiced, he even did a practice run to camouflage, to practice that so that he would not be spotted at the home. Very scary. And do you remember here, I don't know, this is kind of my theory, or my what I speculate happened here, like, for this reason why he said he was inspired, why he says he was inspired, not necessarily as to why he said he was inspired. I believe, like, you remember that he bought a wig and the shoes. Do you think, okay, this is a question, do you think he bought those things so that he could go on to mirror what the main character in the movie did? Like, he would see himself as that woman in that movie and try to recreate the same thing he saw in that movie, like wearing the wigs and the shoes, so that he felt like he was living his own film. It was like an imagination or a fantasy coming to life to him. So he wanted to be like that woman. So he bought the wig to wear on that specific night of the murders and the shoes, So I don't know whether that's actually the case. Maybe he wanted, maybe in a deluded state, he wanted his fantasy to come to life. Or maybe mental illness here, I don't know. But it just popped into my mind, like, why would he buy a wig? Why would he buy doll shoes? Was he trying to recreate the movie in real life? That's what I think, but I don't know. I cannot be sure. Also revealed that he had thought well about the crime. He confessed that he had tried this 3 times. The 3 times, they don't really go into specific as to what each time he tried, or what he did try in those 3 times he did this. But it said that he initially thought of using carbon monoxide to end the lives of his family, but that didn't work, and that's when he decided he would be using the knife instead. So, and it said that he thought of this 3 months before he actually committed. 3 months, he had a lot of time to actually change his mind, but he didn't. He went on and did this anyway, which shows or says that he premeditated this. He thought well about this crime and wanted to get away with it. So that's what he said again. Also, he revealed that he wanted to completely wipe out the whole family. He planned to attack when his sisters were home. It didn't work out as he had planned, because he had planned to attack the home when the sisters were there. But the day before, the sisters had reported to school, so they were no longer at the home. So he just missed them, but he wanted to end all of their lives. He just didn't want them. Another reason, or another theory as to why he did this, I don't know, for me, I think stands out a bit. Inheritance. I don't know. Maybe he was planning to murder, the whole family just because of money. Just because of money. He wanted the whole inheritance. I don't know, but I feel like that could also be another reason as to why he did this. But it could be a combination of all of them, but I don't know. But I feel like also that can't be ignored. So here I'd like to mention what happened to Sarah. She was initially arrested as she was with him, and also, thought to be an accomplice to the murders, since the police had plastered this man's face everywhere, and Sarah didn't say anything. She didn't report him. That looked very suspicious. that she was living with a murderer or somebody the police were looking for, and she didn't say anything. So she was arrested. Like, maybe she was an accomplice. She knew something about the murders. And also the police, had that Sarah was the one who bought the knife for this man. So they thought, yeah, Sarah could be involved. She was questioned, and soon they realized that Sarah didn't know anything about the murders. She didn't know anything about it. She would, however, say that Lawrence gave her hints. Like, one day he told her that he will do something that will make them live peaceful and happy lives. He didn't explain further as to what he was planning to do, but she now thinks that that's what he wanted to do, but he never told her what he wanted to do. He just said that he would do something that would make them live peaceful and happy lives. Another thing she mentioned was that Lawrence had tried to convince her that morning to take some drugs with him, but she had refused, and Lawrence would later corroborate this in his interrogation, saying that Sarah didn't know anything about the murders, anything that he was said to do, and he wanted her to take the drugs with him. The reason for that, he wanted her to take the drugs with him so that she would pass out and think that he had been in the home, or he had been there the whole time, the whole entire day with her. So he wanted her to pass out so that she would essentially alibi for him. She would be his alibi, but she wouldn't know that she was his alibi. So he wanted to use her as an alibi, but he didn't tell her what exactly he was doing or what he wanted to do. So that is what he said, why he wanted to convince Sarah to take the drugs. And good for Sarah, because she didn't take the drugs, because you don't know what would have happened if she actually took the drugs. You don't know anything about this man. Like, he could easily just have done the same thing to Sarah that he did to his parents. So good on her for not taking them. And definitely saved her life, Now, this whole confession from Lawrence corroborating Sarah's story kind of saved Sarah's life. So the prosecution, because they realized that Sarah was not involved, they offered her a deal that she is set to testify. She would be released, but she is set to testify in his trial, Lawrence's trial. If it begins, she's to testify for the prosecution side as to what happened on that day. So kind of saved her life, for not knowing what this man was about to do. So after the interrogation and everything wrapped up, Lawrence was set to appear in court for a pre-trial hearing. But it was halted and a competency test was ordered, as it was thought that he was under the influence of drugs. There they thought that he wouldn't be competent to stand trial. So first he went and got treated for that. And when he was treated, psychiatrists looked at him and they ruled that he was competent to stand trial. And then he was presented in court. And when he got to the pretrial hearing, he pleaded not guilty, despite even confessing and evidence being against him. Even went and showed them where the evidence was. So he even recreated the scenes of what he did that day, but he pleaded not guilty. Pleading not guilty is let me explain that a little, because you see, when you plead guilty, whatever sentence could be handed, you could even be done for a death. We still have the death penalty. So if you plead guilty, there's no reason or chance for you to appeal the case, and high possibility you would be put up for the death penalty. You still have the death penalty, if you didn't know. So high chances you would be put up for that. That's why I'm thinking he pleaded not guilty. I don't know. I cannot defend that, and I cannot understand why he pleaded not guilty despite evidence being proving that he's guilty. So I don't know why he pleaded not guilty, but legally you could say it makes sense. But morally, no, it doesn't. So yeah, so right now we're waiting for his trial to begin. I've not seen any update on his case, but if there's any, I'll let you know. And just to make sure I'm not getting in illegal trouble, I must say that every information I've given here, or every information presented here, is alleged. So alleged that this is this and that. So take everything here with a grain of salt. Everything is alleged. So he is not guilty. He is innocent until proven guilty by court of law. So I would like to make that clear, that this video does not claim or purport to say that he's guilty. He's not accusing him in any way. It's just that information, I'm just presenting information that I've gotten. Okay, so he is innocent until proven guilty by courts of law. So every fact or every information here is alleged. Okay.